Once you find yourself in conflict with a narcissist, it's a virtual guarantee they're going to start playing head games with you. That's why I put together a new course. It's very extensive called Anger Games. I'm going to teach you how to manage anger and conflict with a narcissist. There's a link below that's going to show you how to register, and I hope that you find it to be very insightful. The longer you're around individuals who are caught up in the narcissistic pattern of life, the more you realize these individuals are walking bundles of contradictions. In other words, they're posers, they're pretenders. They want to give the impression of normalcy, even though they carry much abnormality on the inside of themselves. In other words, they can be terribly confusing as you try to make sense of who they are. What you see is not necessarily what you get. Now, one of the things that you've heard people like myself say is that narcissism is built upon a foundation of shame. And that's something that I hold on to very strongly. These individuals have a history where shame is not managed well at all. And yet, as you engage with them and as they treat you very poorly, sometimes you realize this person seems to have no shame in the way that they mistreat other individuals. So what's going on here? They have a foundation of deeply embedded shame, and yet they present themselves with no shame. And when I say that, they don't have remorse. They don't have any sense of guilt about the way they mistreat other individuals. That's the contradiction that I'm talking about. Now, as we get into this, I've got multiple insights I'm wanting you to become aware of. Let's understand there's a difference between the emotion of guilt and the emotion of shame. When we talk about guilt, we're talking about recognizing that there's something in your behavior or in your attitudes that are wrong, and they require repair. They require restitution. And so, for example, if you have mistreated someone, or if you've not followed through on a promise and you feel guilty, okay, that guilt can lead you towards some sort of restitution. When we talk about shame, we're talking about the feeling of your character being defective. And shame takes guilt into a much more personal dimension. Now, as we talk about shame in particular, I want to see if I can put you onto certain beginning points that I have in my thinking about that topic, and then we're going to take a progression and we're going to see how narcissists wind up being very contradictory in the way they understand all of this. One of the beginning points that I have is that every single human being has inherent worth. You have inherent value. And it shows up literally on your first day of life. When you're that small newborn infant, people scurry around and take care of you and want to make sure that all your needs are tended to. Why is that? Because you're a human being. You have worth, you have value. You hadn't even accomplished anything yet except just showing up. But there's just this natural understanding. You're a worthy individual. Another of my beginning points is that every individual eventually begins to develop selfishness, and in doing so, they prove themselves to be capable of diminishing other individuals. You've seen children age 3, age 9, age 15, and sometimes age 64. You've seen individuals who develop a selfishness where it becomes unruly and it becomes harmful. And this sets up what we refer to as an understanding of the duality of humanity. There's a part of us that has goodness and decency attached to us, but then there's a part of us that has the capacity for ungood or not good and indecent kinds of behaviors. That's the duality we carry. Now, taking it a bit further, you can see then that this means that each person requires guidance. We need lessons on how to find balance between the appropriate self-preservation that we want and consideration of others. And so there need to be discussion. It's what I refer to as the training of emotional competence. And then as that balance is taught, then there needs to be a consistent message. And that is, even as we identify behaviors and attitudes that are in you that are wrong, your guilt, we can do so in such a way where your worthiness remains intact. In other words, you don't have to have baked in shame. You see the difference there? And then therein lies the problem when it comes to the development of the narcissistic pattern. Narcissists, as they started out and then as they continue through adolescence and way deep into their adult years, have a very blurry and confused notion about how to deal with guilt and sometimes the shame that's there on the inside of them. And they have a very difficult time distinguishing bad behavior from bad character. Now, why is that? Well, it comes down to understanding two different trains of thought when we address inappropriate behavior. One train of thought is the judgmental style of thinking. There's something really wrong with you, and you're on my bad list. The other pattern of thinking is what we refer to as descriptive thinking, and that's an entirely different way of approaching difficulties. Let me give you an idea of how that can be distinguished. Let's suppose that a little child is caught in a lie, or it doesn't have to be a little child; it can be a big child too. And so you're trying to address the lie. In the judgmental pattern of thinking, you can let it be known, you had better not do that again. This is completely unacceptable. I will have none of that. And there can be a very strong imperative that says, this is not good. You cannot be that way. The recipient of that message hears, I'm not acceptable. Okay, I got that. You don't like me. That's how they think. Or if a young person is caught in a lie, you can use the descriptive style, and you can say, well, obviously you had some sort of reason that prompted you to want to tell that lie. Let's talk about what that was. What were you hoping to accomplish? And then as that's ferreted out, then you can take it further and you can say, we have options. Let's discuss where each option leads and what is healthy and what's not healthy, what's going to succeed and what's not going to succeed. We can figure this out. So you can see that one approach says there's something really bad about you and they're going to park on it. The other approach, the descriptive approach, says we can figure out who you are and how we can turn this into an opportunity for growth. And that's something, of course, that the narcissist never does come to terms with. That narcissist, as they look back upon their ways of dealing with guilt and then the shame that sometimes can accompany that, they begin thinking, I hate being criticized. You are so hypocritical, or you're just trying to control everything about me and I can't stand that, or why don't you just shut up and leave me alone? And so they develop a bitter response when someone comes along and addresses their difficulties. And then as that shame is not processed very well, then more is added onto that. They draw the conclusion that says, I'm sick and tired of being on the receiving end of anyone's judgment. I'll have it no more. And then they'll let it be known, and I'll have nothing to do with your rejections. So what this does is this sets up a pattern, a defense mechanism that we refer to as reaction formation. You ever heard of that? We go back to Psychology 101. When you have a reaction formation, it means that you replace unwanted tensions with its opposite. A simple illustration is, let's say I grew up dirt poor, and so now as an adult it's like I'm going to have as much money as I can possibly have. That's a reaction formation. If you grew up with a lot of shame and judgment, then the reaction formation can be, I'll have nothing to do with your shame and judgment. And so as a result, these individuals, when they do something wrong, if they yell at you, if they scream, or if they make mistakes, it's like, how about that? I did that. And I don't have any remorse whatsoever. And so that early shame is suppressed and it's set aside. And then it's like, I'm going to have nothing to do with it. And so there's where you get that contradiction that comes in. They have lots of shame that's at the base of who they are, but then later on they have no sense of shame because they've determined I'm not gonna have anything to do with it. So you can go back to my opening statement and realize that there's a lot going on when we say that narcissists are a walking bundle of contradictions. Now, in order for you to respond to this, I'm hoping that you can yourself learn the distinction between judgmental thinking and descriptive thinking. When you have descriptive thinking, there are other ingredients that would go along that would make that more possible in your mind. Descriptive thinking requires you to be empathetic. It requires a certain amount of patience and self-restraint. It requires objectivity. Let's just take a look at what the facts are here. And then it also requires you to have a sense of honesty. It requires emotional composure. It requires humility. It requires analytical thinking. Are those ingredients that you see inside the narcissist? And the answer is no. They stay stuck in that judgmentalism, and they're running and pedaling away from it as fast as they can. And in their confusion about shame, they'll have nothing to do with any kind of guilt on their side, and they have lots of unresolved confusion that they displace or project into you. So, as you see this narcissistic person who has lots of baked-in shame that's buried in a subconscious kind of way, and then they show no shame when they have very inappropriate behaviors, I'm hoping descriptively you can decide the narcissist is clearly in pain, but you see that's not my burden to carry. I'm going to need to partner with someone who has progressed in their own psychological maturity. Clearly, the narcissist is stuck. They're fixated in their own old tensions. I find that to be sad, but I also find that to be something that I'm not able to manage. That's on them. Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good clarification about what you're dealing with. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to go ahead and do so. Hit the notification bell so you'll be aware when more videos are coming along. I truly appreciate you allowing me to be on your journey with you. Now, as you're trying to deal with something like this and you have these kind of strange intentions, it may be that you'll need some therapy. And I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. It's a very large and well-known online therapy resource. All you have to do is go through the link that we have below the video, answer a few questions, and then you can select a therapist that can help you. It can be so good for you to have somebody that says, let's break this down, let's understand who you are and what you're dealing with so that you can move forward in cleanness and get the help that you need. Now, in addition, in my retirement from my counseling practice, I put together courses, and this is my way of pulling together the many resources that I've had through the years and packaging them in ways that can be very particular. Each course has at least 25 teaching videos with handouts, guided questions. We have anger games about how not to get sucked into their anger. We have This Is Me about establishing those boundaries that are so necessary. Free to Be, Finding Yourself Despite the Controllers. Ready, Set, Connect about finding good connection skills. And then on my web, and there's links below for all of that, as well as being on my website. And on my website, we also have my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations, teachings that are very popular, along with access to my podcast, articles, my books, etc. Lots of resources. Narcissists have a lot of shame at the base. They've buried it. They've run from it. Now they have no shame many times as they engage with you. That's the contradiction. I hope you can see through it, and I hope that you don't take on the projections that they want to put onto you. And in doing so, I'm hoping descriptively, as you're honest with yourself about who you are, you can have an objectivity, a steadiness, and ultimately you can get further and further down the path towards your sense of internal peace.